Hello, Mark Fisher, pastry chef here at Indian Hills. Welcome back to the studio. This segment I'm going to go through and show you the process of doing a fruit pie. Actually, I'm doing an apple pie today. I'm going to start off with showing you about the crust, how to work the crust, which is just as important as the filling on the pie itself. The mixing procedure as far as the pie crust goes, I used all-purpose shortening and pastry flour. And the mixing process is real important on this here. You don't want to over mix it, so you want to mix it slow until the crust comes together with, or the flour comes together with the shortening. Once it gets to a mealy stage where you're looking at small dry pebbles, then you want to add your liquid to, which is cold water. Add your water all at once, and once the dough absorbs all the water, that's when you want to pull it off the mixer. A lot of people sometimes have the tendency to over mix it. And that's going to make your crust a little tougher, not as flaky and tender in your finished pie that you're making. Once it comes off the mixer, divide it off into round patties like I have here. Put it in a sheet pan. You can wrap it with saran wrap. Put it in a cooler or refrigerator. Let it chill until it's firm again. Then you bring it out, and I broke this in half here. You can kind of see the little layers. That's the flakiness. That's just the layers of the shortening and the flour mixed together. Okay, I'm going to start rolling my dough out. And you want your surface to be floured down, but you don't want a lot of flour on, just enough so your dough doesn't stick to it. If you get too much flour, what happens is it works into your dough, dries it out, and that's when you start to see the dough start to tear. So what I'm going to do is just going to start kneading this by hand till it gets back to a mealy stage, kind of like Play-Doh. Put a little flour on my bench here. I'm going to start patting this out. As I'm doing that, I always take it and swing it around in some flour. Make sure it's not sticking on me. I should be able to take this and just slide it all around my table without sticking. Take a little flour and dust on the top. Now I try to keep it in a nice circle formation. That way it fits into the pie tin nice and even. Take my rolling pin. I'll start to roll this out. And always stop to make sure it's not sticking on your table. Work it back and forth. As you see, I'm not adding any more flour to it, and it still just wants to move around. That's what you want. When I'm rolling, I don't put a lot of pressure on my pin. The rolling pin has some weight to it, so let it do some of the work. If you get too much pressure on it, you can make that dough really stick to your table or your bench, and then that's where you might have some problems. Okay, got it rolled out to about the size. The thickness I got it just down to an 1/8 of an inch or less. I'm using a 9-inch deep foil pan. You want enough dough so it goes down inside your pan, but you have some excess. So when it comes out, it lays over the top of your rim of your pan, so you have enough dough to work with, so you can crimp it under to make that nice crust around the top. I'm going to roll this just a little bit more. Okay, got to the size I want. Pick it up, fold it in half, lay it into your pie tin, and then unfold it. Okay, now at this point, I want to take the dough and tuck it down inside the pan. You don't want no air pockets down inside that. And this dough is pretty flexible. I mean, you can really work with this and it won't tear on you. Got it all worked down inside my pan. Now at this point, I want to cut this excess off. Take your pastry wheel, you take a knife, roll it around. Take all this excess off that you don't need. You still want to leave some hanging over for a couple reasons here. I'll show you here in a minute. Your old dough that you cut off, and you can rework this, use it as a lattice top or a solid top on your fruit pie when you get done. So at this point, for my fruit pie, I would leave this excess just like this here, because when I come back, put my filling on, I'll come back and do a lattice top on that, and I need this excess here to attach my lattice top to. But if I want to do a crust for a cream pie, I would cut this excess off just a little bit more. You still want some hanging over there. Try to get it as even as you can. Now I'm going to take this dough and I'll just roll it under. All I'm doing is taking the excess and folding it. That's what I'm doing here, just rolling it or folding it underneath the other. Go all the way around. Now I want to make a nice little crimp on this crust here. There's a couple ways you can do it. Grandma at home might take her fork and flatten it down with the fork. Makes nice little crimps on that. You can do the finger and the thumb and index finger method. Take your thumb and index finger, hold it about a finger width apart, and you start any place on the crust and just go in there. Make the nice little crimp. Now there's a machine in the factory that does this for you too. So you go to the store, you buy one at the store. There's a machine that puts the dough in the crust, put it in here, it stamps it, presses it down, makes that little crust there on crimp there for you. But then I just take my hand and kind of flatten that down. That way it attaches to the top of that pie tin. So, okay. This will be our crust for our cream pie. Now what I want to do at this point is I want to put this back into the cooler and let this dough chill, because as I had it out here, it gets really soft and pliable. And if I would just take this, put it in the oven and bake it, since it's soft, it would all shrink up back into the pie tin, and you wouldn't have no crust around the sides or on top here. So I take this, put it in the cooler, let it firm up really nice and cold. And for a cream pie, you want to blind bake this. And what blind baking means is I'm going to take some saran wrap and put down inside the shell, and I'll fill it with dried beans. And then it will go into the oven, bake it for about 10 to 12 minutes, pull the beans out and dock it real good so it doesn't blister on you. Then put it back in the oven and let it finish baking for about another 8 to 10 minutes until that crust browns up for you. Then it'll come out and you let it cool and go ahead and you make your filling for your cream pie, put it into your pre-baked crust. So I'll show you how to blind bake it here. Just take some saran wrap, put it down inside your shell, and the saran wrap will not melt in the oven. You know, I've had some students ask me, well, won't that melt in the oven? I said, no, it won't. What it will do, it will kind of shrink up and dry out, but it won't melt on you. And just take some beans, any kind of beans by the store, uncooked, don't want cooked ones. And fill it full of beans. Fill all the way to the top of the crust there. And I kind of press it in there really good and tight, because the tighter it is, the less shrinkage you'll have from your crust. Then you're just going to lay your plastic over. Put it on a sheet pan, pop it in the oven, bake it. Once this crust on the top here starts to firm up and get a little color on it, then you would pull your beans out, take a fork and dock it really good, the bottom and the sides, stick it back into the oven and finish baking it till you have a nice golden, light golden brown color on your crust. That's ready to come out of the oven. And this will be your finished crust after you have blind baked it for your cream pie. What docking is, say for example, I've got this in the oven, I pre-baked it till my crust around here is colored up and has some base to it. I pulled my beans out, and all I'd done was just taken a fork and dock the bottom of it, put little air holes in it. And I did around the sides here too. What that does, if you don't do that, because there's air trapped in the dough, when you roll it out, you don't get a little blistering in your dough, and it's cause little bubbles in that, and then if you try to press those down to come out, all it's going to do is just break on you, have little voids in your crust there. So that's what docking means in a pie dough.